Hello, I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society. Welcome to the Urban Agenda. I'm very pleased to be joined for today's program by the Borough President of the Bronx, Adolfo Carrion. Welcome to the Urban Agenda.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, CSS, Community Service Society, just came out with a report, two reports actually, that I'd like to get your response to. One showed, when we did a survey of about 1,000 poor people, that about 50% of them reported just really major problems with housing, losing jobs, getting their utilities cut off, a whole range of things. And the other, we just came out with a report finding that 50% of black men in the city of New York and a third of Latinos men have no work. How does that play itself out in the Bronx?
Well,
what's happening in the Bronx?
You know, it's a sad state of affairs. I just did my State of the Borough address several weeks ago and talked about the crisis that we have with job creation at the national level, at the state level, and at the local level. And you know that it's been bandied about in the press. This president, if we start at the national level, this president came in and said, we're going to create 5 million jobs. He scaled it down to 3 million jobs. Well, guess what? We lost 3 million jobs. And at the state level, it's the same situation. Just in the last year at the city level, we've lost about 25,000 jobs. The Bronx, of the 62 counties in New York State, we have the highest unemployment rate. We're around 10%. We hover around 10%. That's 1 in 10 people that is out of work. And then when you whittle down to the Black and Latino community, obviously the crisis is even more severe. So I think we have a serious situation on our hands that we need to see some leadership from all levels of government. Now, just recently, I had an unusual meeting in my office with Senator Hillary Clinton and the farmers and growers in upstate New York. They all drove down to the Bronx. They came down to the Bronx because in the Bronx we have the biggest food distribution center practically in the world, we like to say, but certainly in the United States. And it turns out that New York State farmers are not able to get their product through into this vast market of 17 to 20 million people here in downstate and the region. So an upstate farmer is selling stuff to small towns in northern Pennsylvania, in southern Canada, and it's quality product that is not making it to the marketplace. And the reason I tell this story is because it was not us. It was not the Democrats. It was not the urban folk who were saying something. The upstate farmers and growers were saying what we've been saying from our perspective here, where the unemployment rate is really high, that there is an absence of leadership when it comes to job creation and creating the structures and the vehicles so that we can build economies within the state of New York.
Well, what would it take to get this market going? Why should it be so difficult to get, obviously the markets for distribution in the Bronx? What's at work here?
You know, what they think and what we believe is simply that we need to pay attention to our local economy and build some communication infrastructure in the marketplace so that a farmer that's growing peaches in a county way upstate, or strawberries or whatever it is, can get those products in the most efficient way to the marketplace. New Jersey has launched a great campaign for the cities and towns and the businesses and the restaurants and the hotels and the casinos to buy domestic, and they're succeeding. We don't really have such a program at this time. When I became borough president, I said to the developers and people who were coming into the Bronx and wanting to build things and to invest in retail development and all that, I said, folks, if you come to do business here, you have to buy Bronx, you have to buy New York City, and you have to buy New York State in that order. And the reason I say that is because we need to create a sense of obligation with the local marketplace, not only on the consumer side, but also on the worker side. And I think that's the kind of signal that we need to hear from City Hall, from Albany, and of course, at a national level.
Let's talk about another thing. That, Bronx revitalization is clearly those of us old enough to remember the old South Bronx and the block after block of devastation. And obviously a couple of administrations, some of the prior leadership in your office, all moved to change that. Now, of course, there's with the end of many housing subsidies, with obviously an economy that's been, in the tank for the last 3 years. How is that revitalization holding up, and what are you doing about it to make sure it doesn't abate?
Well, we just launched a campaign called the Bronx at Work, and the notion is that we will connect. We will use every vehicle possible, and there's 3 major pieces to this campaign. One is we're launching a site called thebronxatwork.com. 2, we're going to use a local television, and it's called Bronx Jobs TV. Very simple.
So someone can actually find out if there's a job available in the borough.
Yes, and 3, a telephone line, an 800 number, a toll-free number that people can call. But the idea is to get information to the job seekers about jobs that are available in the Bronx, in the city, in New York City, and in the region. There's growth in White Plains, there's growth in northern New Jersey, there's growth in southern and southwestern Connecticut, and our workers, folks from there come here. But there's a need for workers to go to those markets, and so what we want to do is we want to create a synergy in the region that creates a reverse commute. And I think that given the patterns that we've seen with the reverse commute, especially going up to White Plains, New York, it's a natural. You're literally talking about a 20-minute commute northbound instead of coming down
just to confirm that you're right. I remember when I was Youth Service Commissioner many years ago now, in the 80s, the department stores at the Thanksgiving and Christmas rush, they had literally young people waiting around the block for jobs, the special sort of seasonal jobs. But in the suburban ring, they couldn't get anybody.
They couldn't find people.
And we set up a bus service.
There you go.
That basically left at some ungodly hour in the morning, 5:30, and came back at 6:30 at night. But about 20% of the young people who got those jobs kept them. So it was great.
If you take a train from Fordham Road and 3rd Avenue on Metro North,
sure, you don't even need this.
20 minutes, you're in
there.
White Plains, New York. It's a very comfortable ride, and you're in a beautiful downtown White Plains.
But this raises the other issue. Do our young people, who we're particularly worried about, and other people who lack skills, are there jobs for them in these suburban and White Plains communities? I mean, that's obviously our kids, the dropout rate in the Bronx, in my Bedford-Stuyvesant and Central Harlem, in some schools well exceeds 60, 70, 80% for both Latino and African-American young people.
Unfortunately, I think that many of the young people are not prepared to go into the workplace. I just spoke to a merchant who opened up a food store on 161st Street near the Grand Concourse about a year ago. He has 5 employees that run the store. 5, that's all.
That's it.
He's been through 60 people in terms of turnover within 1 year. What's his complaint? There's no ethic in terms of showing up on time. There's no ethic in terms of the workplace and the standards of the codes of behavior in terms of customer service.
Right.
Even after training, people quit from one moment to the next. They walk out. There's crises in the home that impose certain conditions on people that they can't hold on to the job because they're caring for someone who's sick at the house or a child.
Yep.
So it's very difficult. Going back a little bit to the, sort of the basis of your question, the Bronx experienced, and you know from your time in the administration, especially with Ed Koch, who really ushered in this period of construction of housing. I mean, we're talking several 100,000 units of housing.
Right.
In the Bronx, there were 66,000 units of housing created or rehabilitated within about a 14-year period. I mean, it was tremendous. And you know, Freddie Ferrer was pretty much the shepherd of that process in the Bronx, along with Ed Koch and then David Dinkins. How's the Bronx holding up since that physical revival? The one thing that we're getting is a lot of investment. I think what we have is we have a young marketplace, we have an immigrant marketplace, we have young families who are coming to the Bronx and staying. Can they find affordable housing? They're struggling. Is there enough? There's a lot of doubled-up families. But from the business side, what industry sees, especially in the retail sector, they see lots of money.
Right.
Because every one of those bambinos needs to be fed, clothed, entertained, and they're growing families. The other manifestation in our little marketplace is that there's a real entrepreneurial spirit on the part of these new Americans. We have people from Latin America. We've had an explosion in the Dominican community. Sure. Our latest rise now is in the Mexican American community. The Mexicans are growing exponentially, right. And it's not not that they're having more babies. They're simply coming in larger numbers. And then we have the Puerto Rican and African American folks that are sort of my generation, your generation, this period from about the 60s to now,
right.
that sort of came from Puerto Rico, came from the South. They came to the northern industrial cities, and they found themselves in an environment that was not as supportive, right. And as inviting as the city that essentially the white European immigrant came to, which was it was a different place. It was a different posture, right. on the part of government. I'm rereading The Cost of Good Intentions, sure. which was the book that covered the early Lindsay, early to late Lindsay, and then Beam, and the phenomenon of this city's response to this burgeoning population. Yes. And I think what we see now is a Black and Puerto Rican population that's still trying to break the back of institutionalized, sort of being boxed in, right. to housing projects and other boundaries that were created.
We'll be right back to continue the urban agenda.
Oh, you're lucky, young fella. Mm-hmm. You know, hospitals didn't even use ether for your procedure until about 1846. Yeah, slap on a few live leeches, grab a hacksaw, get to work. Of course, we don't use leeches anymore.
It's fun to know history. Find curious facts from America's past at loc.gov, the Library of Congress website.
We're talking with Adolfo Carrion, the Borough President of the Bronx. Adolfo, a lot of us have been witnessing, and actually you've been a participant in one of the biggest controversies in the city of New York, which is the mayor's push for ending what's described as social promotion. Where do you come down on this, holding kids back, and will this help to cure the problem that everyone recognizes we've gotten into in the education system?
I'm a father of 4 kids, all of which are in the public education system in New York City. I'm a former school teacher. I know it from several angles, from being a member of the city council and being on both the education committee and the higher education committee. I know it as borough president, as appointing someone to the new panel for educational policy. I supported the mayor in his attempt to arrest control of the school system. I thought that it was the right thing to do, given the crisis that we've been in for several generations now, unfortunately. And on this one, I think that he missed an opportunity to show real leadership on a very complicated issue. My representative to the panel for educational policy voted no, but the real vote was voting yes for the kids. And several hours before we cast the vote on that Monday that will go down in history as known as the Monday of the Monday Night Massacre, right. I'm still in shock that within a 3-hour period before the meeting, that Rosa Hernandez and Suzanne and the representative from Staten Island were asked to step down from their responsibilities after all the attention that this PEP got. And the announcement, when the mayor announced that he was going to appoint these wonderful people that he had tremendous regard and respect for, to turn around and basically to use a TV term, to whack them, because they were not going to vote exactly the way he wanted them to, I think is unconscionable and cannot be forgotten. Having said that, let me just say, I called the mayor. We spent a good 20 minutes on the phone. It was not. It was a. We had an argument basically. Mm-hmm. I said, Mr. Mayor, you don't have the votes. Why don't we table this for 30 days and we all come to the table? We all come together. We want to stand with you because nobody supports so-called social promotion. Right. No one really does. Nobody wants a child to advance through their education
without learning.
Without learning. I mean, that's ridiculous. Right. So I think the press has it wrong when they say that he won. He didn't win. He bullied his way through, and that's wrong. And they need to be clear about that. You don't win by bullying people. You win by convincing your opponent that you're right, and having them meet you at least halfway. There was none of that. There was no discussion. Where do we need to go? I think we need to put the resources in the first grade, the second grade, the third grade, like we've never done before. If the mayor is serious, and I hope he's listening, if the mayor is serious about this, and you know what, David, I really believe that he's sincere about wanting to make an impact. Mr. Mayor, the way you do it is you put the master teachers, the lead teachers into these needy schools, you redistribute, and you know who's going to have to step up to the plate? And my friends at the United Federation of Teachers.
No question.
Who are going to have to give a little bit with this tenured teacher having the best spot in the system.
I had a dispute on that many years ago. One of the early studies we found, after that policy was put in, it was actually established in the Koch administration, where there was a decision to allow teachers with a certain amount of seniority to go into the school of choice. And my difficulty wasn't with that, but there was never any effort to backfill the schools they left. And when we looked at it many years ago, it had been an outmigration with much junior and much more per diem teachers filling in. It's a problem that we have to address. And I think the union understands it has to be addressed. Oh,
they do. And you know what? I think the best way to negotiate with the union is the old carrot and stick. Right. And the carrot is the salary. If we pay these teachers what they're worth, we will attract the best teacher. And people want to teach in New York City.
Just to confirm, I have to send another study that we commissioned with our professor at NYU, looking at the characteristics and data that indicates passage of the Regents exam at the end of it. And one of the critical things, determinants, is can they read in the 4th grade? That all the way along, if you can't make that leap, the outcomes, no matter how good inputs you have, it really confirms what you're saying.
You know the parable of the house that's built on sand will get washed away by the storm and the seas. The house that's built on rock, on a solid foundation, will not be moved. And the solid foundation is K, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. They get the basic skills, and then they can run with it.
Let's shift gears and talk a little bit. The borough president's role has, at least for some, seemed totally eviscerated. That no more power left, much smaller budgets. How do you navigate and bring power to bear for the people of the Bronx with an office that's been sharply reduced?
It has been sharply reduced, and sometimes I wish we had the old Board of Estimate on these land use and budget matters.
Sure.
Certainly you had more negotiating power. Now you have to be an even more effective leader, because now you have to convince your delegations to stand with you, whether it's the city council, the state legislative delegations, or the congressional delegations. I don't think people really understand this. New York is made up of 5 counties. These five counties belong to a state with 62 counties. Every county has a county executive. That county executive, in effect, has the bird's eye view and the collective interests of that county. Every local official will, pull in their direction, whether it's the East Bronx, the North Bronx, the West Bronx, or the South Bronx. I have to look at it all and balance it and try to bring resources to every area of the borough. The borough presidency has become more of a bully pulpit and it has become more of a finessing of the political process. Certainly the community board structure that was created in the 1970s allows us an opportunity to significantly impact land use and budget decisions and priorities, and sort of be a thorn in the side of the administrations, whether it's at the local or all the way up to the national level even. Believe it or not, people will look to community boards because they are the representative group of the neighborhoods. But it has become more of an art form.
Well, there's an interesting example, actually, that we've talked about, which is the waterfront. You've started an initiative on the Bronx waterfront. The idea of a Bronx waterfront, first of all, is something I have to take. Okay, there is a waterfront, yes, but how is that working out? What is that effort?
I'm an urban planner by profession,
Okay.
and I think part of this job is what you bring to it and your perspective. And the notion that I have is that cities are organic and you grow them, and New York is elastic, and the Bronx in particular is not known for its waterfront or other features. But we have waterfront on the Hudson River, the Harlem River, the East River, and all the way out to the Long Island Sound. Much of that waterfront was cut off from the communities by the famous Bobby Moses, Robert Moses, who unfortunately did some, actually, no, not unfortunately, did some very positive things in some respects, and in some respects completely destroyed communities and neighborhoods, like when we cut the Cross Bronx Expressway right through the heart of neighborhoods that really held the Bronx together in the last 3 generations. And what we've presented now, and again, this is the use of the bully pulpit. No one official in the Bronx really can say, I have a plan for the Bronx. The mayor may put forth a plan for a portion of the city. My job is to champion that county. And so we created a waterfront task force when I got elected. For a year they met. Good people, business people, community people, elected officials, environmental advocates, all sorts of people. Imagine having all these perspectives coming together. There was a lot of headbutting. What we came out with was a set of recommendations that I took, and I've responded to those set of recommendations to bolster the working waterfront, to be able to bring freight ferry service to Hunts Point, to the working waterfront there, to be able to shore up the waterfront in Port Morris so we can move trash in and out on the water and not have trucks going through the neighborhoods, building parks, piers, boardwalks. There are several housing sites that would allow us to create several thousand units of housing on the waterfront in beautiful places that have been hidden from the community simply because they were underutilized and left abandoned, or they were simply unreachable.
Any immediate outcomes yet?
Absolutely. We've got money in the budget this year. If you go out to City Island in the Northeast Bronx, that's our little Cape Cod.
I've been to City Island. We used to take my kids there all the time.
Yeah, well, when you go to the end, there's Johnny's Reef on one side, and there's Tony's on the other. And right in the middle, right at the end, is a place called Belden Point. And if you look out over Belden Point, you're looking out, there's Great Neck across the bay and across the river, and it's the East River and the beginning of the Long Island Sound. You see the fishing boats going out and all. Well, right at Belden Point, you'll see the old stanchions of what used to be a boardwalk and a beautiful place where you can go and sit and relax. We're going to rebuild that, and it's going to happen very quickly. We're building a park at the Riverdale Metro North Station so that we'll have a park immediately across from the Palisades Cliffs on the Hudson River, and a whole bunch of points like that, non-motorized boat launches for the Harlem River. We have sculling, we have crewing on the Hudson River. Columbia, Manhattan, Fordham, they all crew there.
Adolfo, where to for you next? What is your future going to lead you to? What are you interested in? Obviously, you brought an enormous amount of energy to this job. I think there's a recognition of that.
Thank you.
Where to next?
Well, I'm going to run for re-election now. In 2005, and there's been a lot of speculation about if Billy Thompson runs for mayor, will Adolfo run for comptroller? What's going to happen? We don't know who the candidates are for mayor. Are you going to try to get the top job? We have so much work to do in the Bronx. The area around Yankee Stadium and the old Bronx Terminal Market. I just came from a meeting squeezing the administration to make a commitment to work with us on the Yankee Stadium community. We're building thousands of units of housing in the Washington Avenue corridor. We just rezoned it. We were rezoning Port Morris.
So we got to tune in.
Yes, stay tuned and we'll see what we do. But I'll tell you one thing, I hope to be providing leadership for my hometown for a long time.
My thanks to Bronx Borough President Adolfo Carrion. I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society, and thank you for watching the Urban Agenda. To learn more about the work of the Community Service Society of New York or to comment on the Urban Agenda, please contact us at 212-614-5425 and on the web at www.cssny.org.